some of the things that I'm talking about are relevant to other types of leukemia, but this is really about people who spend a lot of time in hospital, and how you cope with life after leukemia, and possibly how you cope with life living with leukemia sometimes. I've personally never experienced cancer, leukemia or chemotherapy. I know a lot of people who have, obviously, over the years. And I have no particular expertise in survivorship. There are some people who are very expert at this, and there's quite a growing area of research in this area. And this is sort of, much of this is talk about how they and their loved ones have coped with this diagnosis, and particularly how they cope with life after treatment has ended. And I mean, I've got a few slides, but it's as much to promote discussion as to give a presentation, so feel free to interrupt and tell me what you think. I think the slides won't fill the time available. Just the outline. I think one of the things that when you have leukemia is how do we measure prognosis? Because we're trying to give people some idea of how well or not well they're going to do with their leukemia. And I guess I'm going to give you some idea of how uncertain we are about that sometimes. So I think we can divide this sort of topic of survivorship into early survivorship, which is really about going home, returning to work, and monitoring the disease. And quality of life is important, and then sort of later, when we stop worrying so much about the disease, the late effects of chemotherapy and the treatment. So we'll talk a bit about that. I wanted to sort of mention a couple of cases. We talk about cases. Cases are actually people. So when we talk about we present case one, I'm just going to give these people names. They're not their real names. But John was a 60-year-old man who had no major previous illnesses, and he was diagnosed with acute myeloid leukemia in November 1992. He was waiting for him when I arrived in Palmerston North as a new consultant, and he was happily married, looking forward to retirement. And case two was James, who was a 60-year-old man with no previous major illnesses. He was diagnosed with acute myeloid leukemia about the same time. He was also waiting for me when I arrived in Palmerston. He was happily married, looking forward to retirement. And this is true. This is when I got there. My colleague showed her answer, by the way, there's 2 new acute myeloid leukemias in the last couple of days, and I thought she was having me on, actually. It's the old story when you're in emergency department, your friend rings you up at 2 in the morning and says there's been a bus crash on the haemophilia camp. Possibly get it wrong. So anyway, she wasn't joking. So John, he went, when I started in haematology as a registrar in 1987, pretty much everybody with acute myeloid leukemia died of that disease. But then we entered the MRC protocols, which are a British research protocol, and although these men weren't entered into that protocol, into that study, I treated them according to that protocol. And John achieved remission after his first cycle of chemotherapy. That's about a month in hospital those days. He had 3 further cycles of intensive chemotherapy, further 3 months in hospital, and he was discharged in remission after 4 cycles. And based on what we knew now from this chemotherapy we were using, it was about a 50% chance that he'd been cured of his leukemia from that. And he was a textbook case. James, same time, underwent intensive chemotherapy, called the same chemotherapy, and he just never recovered from his first cycle of chemotherapy. His counts remained really low for months, and they recovered really gradually. His bone marrow showed no evidence of actual leukemia, but there was not much else there, and we couldn't give him any more chemo. His counts simply didn't recover to the level we could do that. And he was eventually discharged from hospital, and I told him his prognosis, we use this term guarded, and it's bad. Okay, so I didn't have great hopes for James. He was not a textbook case. About 8 months after a single cycle treatment, I saw him for an outpatient appointment. His counts were still low, but he no longer needed blood transfusions, and his sort of white blood cells, the neutrophils, platelets, and that sort of area where we get really nervous about possibly an infection or bleeding. And we sort of had some discussions about the uncertainty of what was going to happen, but agreed there was no way of giving him more chemotherapy. And just as he thinks, oh, by the way, how's John doing? Because they sort of got to know each other on board. And I was hoping he wasn't going to ask me that, because John relapsed 2 or 3 months after completing chemotherapy, and he died within about 2 months of that, so he was dead by the time I had his outpatient appointment. So it's our textbook case. We've got the 4 cycles, good outlook. And so I guess life after leukemia can be sometimes very short, and it's unpredictable. One other man who had only had 1 cycle of chemotherapy, he was pretty surprised. He said, I bet you wouldn't have bet on that. And I said, no, I wouldn't bet on that. About 18 months later, his counts were still low, he was living a pretty normal life. And he said, what about buying some new clothes? I've kind of been hanging off. Go on then. And this was true. I mean, we had these conversations. About 3 years later, much the same, normal but slightly low blood counts. Still got a new car, gone in. And I actually stopped seeing him about 10 years later. He would be 85 now, he's died subsequently of something else. But he's the man who one cycle of chemotherapy would not have predicted to have done well. And so it just shows, and that's a very unusual case. I'd say John's case is not so unusual, despite going through 4 cycles of intensive chemotherapy. Sometimes the best will in the world, the disease gets the better of us. So life can be a long time, it can be filled with anxiety and uncertainty, but also can be filled with much enjoyment. And there are a number of factors that influence the quality of life after leukemia. The first one's being in remission. That's probably quite important for acute leukemia. If you're not in remission, you don't do very well. And then everything else. And everything else includes the long-term side effects of chemotherapy, relationships, family, friends, work, people's personality. Some people cope very well with the stress and uncertainty of this, and some people don't cope very well with it at all. And so in terms of, if the most important thing is being in remission, I guess how do we judge that? How do we guess? How do we predict that? And what do we use for a crystal ball? And these are sort of statements people say to me, you told me I'd only live for 3 years, and I proved you wrong. I remember you telling me that I could live for 5 years or more. You gave me more than 2 years, no more than 2 years. And I guess estimating prognosis, which is what the future looks like, is not about me giving someone with leukemia a set number of years. All we can do is sort of guess. And I know that all those statements are wrong, because I've never said any of those things to anybody. I'm very careful not to say those things. We use this term median survival, and it takes a bit of understanding there. Median survival is the time at which half of people in a particular group remain alive. So it's the time when the 50th person out of 100 dies. And if you're an 80-year-old in a Western country today, your median survival is 9 years. That means about half of you, 80-year-olds, will be alive at 89. Half of you will die. Okay? If you take 90-year-olds, the median survival is probably about 3 years. If you take 20-year-olds, the median survival is probably about 60 years. Does that make sense? And the median survival, if you take acute myeloid leukemia and don't treat it, it's about 3 months. So without active treatment, about half of people with acute myeloid leukemia die within 3 months, and almost all of the rest die within the next 3 months. Obviously, treatment changes that considerably. But the problem with median survival is it's a useful way of describing populations. But as an individual, you're either 100% alive or 100% dead. You can't be 50% alive. Okay? And the median predicted survival for my first patient, John, was in excess of 5 years, and for James, maybe 6 months. And that didn't actually predict what happened to them. So individuals are different from populations, but I guess the other way we show these survival curves. So we start with, this is the percent of patients alive, and this is the years from diagnosis. And this is a typical survival curve where we start with 100% of people, and with time some of them die. But with any luck, we start to see the number or the proportion dying, we get a sort of flattening of the curve. And the median survival is this point. It's the point at which 50% of people have died. Okay? And for this case, it's between 2 and 3 years. And then what we really want to see with most diseases is this flattening of the curve, what we call a plateau. And it's really, this is the proportion that we think are probably cured. Now you can do a survival curve for 60-year-olds, and it will look something like this. With time, a small proportion are dying every year of other things. But this is people who don't have leukemia. This is just more extreme, and typically these survival curves drop early because people don't go into remission, don't respond to treatment, and die of complication early, and then they flatten out with time. The number of people relapsing is less each year until eventually people not relapsing at all, hopefully cured. So take home message number 1 about sort of life after leukemia is life is uncertain. It's really uncertain after leukemia. I mean, I guess my life's uncertain, but it's not so uncertain as someone who's just finished treatment for acute leukemia. We can have an idea of whether someone's a favourite to live a long time after leukemia, or a rank outsider. And, you know, unlike the racing industry, we can't really fix that. We kind of just have to deal with the cards we're dealt with. We can never be sure. And our prediction tools are getting a lot better. So there's a lot of new DNA technology, and we now, one of the most powerful predictors is we can say someone's in remission by looking down the microscope after treatment for leukemia, but now we've got very powerful tools which can see very low levels of disease, and that's a very powerful predictor of whether someone's going to do well long term or not. And that's a very powerful tool for telling us whether we should be considering a bone marrow transplant in someone or just relying on the chemotherapy. And that's coming, and it's really everyday practice now in many places. But this uncertainty is one of the hardest things about life after leukemia. As I say, there's a literature on survivorship. I looked up a few papers and things, and I guess this talked about the phases of survivorship. I've already alluded to this. So there's the acute survival phase, which is actually during the treatment. I'm not going to talk about that. That's where, being in hospital, having intensive chemotherapy, physical symptoms predominate. Then the extended survival phase begins when remission's achieved and treatment stopped, and that is dominated by things like anxiety, fatigue, work, relationships. And then there's the permanent survival phase, which is sort of equates to cure. And typically, we sort of say 5 years after achieving remission, if the disease hasn't come back, it's probably not going to for acute leukemia. It's not absolutely certain, but it's certainly very rare for acute leukemia to relapse 5 years after initial treatment. And fatigue is a feature there, depression, work and relationships, and just normal life can be issues in that phase. And then we have the late effects of treatment, because some of the treatment we give does have the potential to cause problems later. And that's particularly bad after stem cell transplant, especially transplant using someone else's stem cells with the problems that brings. Now, I'm not going to talk a lot about that, and I will draw your attention to the fact that a lot of the things I'm talking about are going to be gone into in great detail, particularly this afternoon's sessions. There's a session on fatigue, there's a session on graft versus host disease, complicated transplantation, there's a session on financial problems, benefits, there's a session, there's one on caregivers, the accidental caregivers. So I would recommend they will go into more detail, some things I'm really going to just touch on. So I'm not going to talk about that acute phase because that's not really what the brief is. I guess, how do we measure it? I mean, it's really about quality of life, and there are these people who research in this area do these questionnaires, and some of you may well have been part of trials or had to get these questionnaires where they ask about different domains, about sort of societal, political, environmental, familial, health factors. Quality of life is very strongly affected by health status. So someone in remission is likely to have a much better quality of life than someone whose disease is relapsed. But it's very personal and it's subjective. So everyone's perception of or their reaction to any situation is an individual thing. Some people who have really terrible problems after treatment seem much more relaxed about it, but people who have very few troubles after treatment. So it's a very individual thing. And studies, again, can only give an idea of populations and groups of people. What do we know about health-related quality of life in people with leukemia? Multiple domains are affected. So these questions are divided on how you physically feel, your emotional health, sexual health. And what we do know is it deteriorates shortly after diagnosis and during initial treatment. Not surprisingly, you suddenly find you've got a life-threatening illness and then you're getting intensive chemotherapy in hospital, your quality of life deteriorates. So some of this research is pretty obvious, I guess. But it does tend to improve as time progresses. But for many people with leukemia, it never gets quite back to normal, even being in remission for many years. So it does affect people's long-term quality of life. And this is a study, there's a variety of studies here showing this. These are some sort of score of health-related quality of life. We just focus on the circles. This is a person who, this is a group of people who at diagnosis their quality of life was poor, but by achieving a remission around a month or so in, it improved. And then with further treatment, and including end of treatment, it gradually improves. But again, 40, this is now nearly being on towards a year after diagnosis, not back to normal, not back to normal. So this is a typical pattern, and these other studies show something similar, sort of drop initially and then an improvement when you achieve remission. And possibly ongoing improvement after that. I always think of treatment, it's a bit like, we've got to take, people talk about the journey. One of the All Black coaches talked about the journey. Well, treatment for leukemia is a bit like a journey, and we've kind of got this forest, and we've got to pick our way through it to something at the end of it. And we have a plan, which is to go through this pathway here. Quite often we have to change that. We often meet an obstacle and have to go and change. We have to alter our treatment options. Sometimes that might involve going to a bone marrow transplant or stem cell transplant because we've met an obstacle and it doesn't look like we're going to get there with chemotherapy alone. So it is a sort of journey through the forest. And we can often reach the same destination by different paths. So I'm talking about we're on plan B. For some long-term hematological diseases, we're on to plan D and F, H these days, but not so much with acute leukemia. At the end of treatment, when you're having treatment, there's a sort of light at the end of the tunnel. When you start, it's a long way away, and then it gets closer and closer. And I guess that initially it's just getting over the shock of the diagnosis and starting the treatment, getting used to being, having intensive chemotherapy and all that entails. And then after a cycle or two, you get to remission, you can start to think realistically about the end. And then, you're nearly there. It's a big deal for people really keen to get home. Quite often though, when you get out there, it's actually cold and it's quite dangerous. There's fast cars, a lot of snow, and it's not, sometimes it's more comfortable being in the tunnel. And so early survivorship is kind of, this is more or less what I've said, it can be quite overwhelming going home after a long period of time in hospital. It can be quite scary. Now home's the best place to be, there's no question about that. You've got better food at home, you've got better company, you've got much better class of bugs. If you get an infection, you want to get it at home, because those bugs are much less likely to be resistant to antibiotics than something you catch in hospital. But you don't have a bell to ring if you feel unwell, which is scary. You've got no one to sort of talk to in the middle of the night as you've had in hospital, and you have to actually begin your real life again. And I think acute leukemia, as many hematological diseases, they turn people's lives upside down. Relationships can change, jobs can be lost, finances can be a mess. When you suddenly just drop everything, you're in hospital having intensive chemotherapy, that's a major change in most people's lives. And that seems sort of irrelevant while you're fighting for your life, but it suddenly becomes really relevant in treatment. And it's just all this stuff has to be addressed. And it's kind of like, this is Victory in Europe Day, great excitement. During the war, people put up with enormous hardship because they were fighting this battle. A year later, when people were queuing for rations and the war was long over, it's not so much fun. So I think leaving hospital is this great thing, but then actually the real business of picking up pieces of a shattered life begins, and it can be really hard. And I guess I draw this, if you draw some vague notion of well-being in time, this is after treatment, one of the things I try and stress is that if I'm seeing someone in a clinic here, and they say, I feel much worse than last week, what I say is look back 2 months, because it's not all one way. You have good days and bad days. Think about last week or last month. Don't think about yesterday so much. This is not necessarily the start of a downward projection. So it's very important to sort of think of the bigger picture, because you are going to have good days and bad days. It's that sort of 2 steps forward, 1 step back. There's another case, and this is about returning to work, and this is a slightly fabricated case, but it's based sort of on someone I've dealt with recently. 40-year-old teacher, stressful job. I'm married to a teacher, so I know that, with acute myeloid leukemia. And she had Gibber's disease, so our predictions would have said that her long-term survival is around 70%. So 7 out of 10 people in her position would expect to have cured with their treatment. 4 cycles of treatment and no major problems. But many weeks in hospital. It's interesting, major problems. I had a patient who, she was sick and she was having an infection and she was quite sick. And I said to her, look, I've got a scale. When you get to trouble here, it's sort of from 0 to 10, and 0 is you're perfectly well, and 10 you're in ICU with fighting for your life, and you're about 3. And she said, well, my scale is 9. I can toss back your scale. Fair comment, But what I thought wasn't so serious, she was not enjoying much. So she had some problems, but she was pretty determined to return to work within a few weeks of her last treatment. She wanted to get back to it, started, and she lasted a week, unable to cope, sick leave, and it took months to get back to work. And this is a real problem. I think everyone's different. Some people actually hated their job before they got leukemia. Some were thinking of retiring. Some are immensely frustrated by the need to take time off the treatment. Some people say, look, I'm going to keep working during the treatment. That usually lasts a week or so. It usually lasts very long. And one of my first questions to someone with new leukemia is, apart from, have you got a supportive spouse or friends or family, is, have you got an employer to look after you? And that's a crucial thing. If you've got a good employer who's going to let you take that time off work, good sick leave, good provision for returning to work in a graduated fashion, it's really important for many people. And I guess my general advice, and it's only advice and everyone's different, is it's really important to be careful and take your time and consider part-time work initially if you can, because there's a real risk of doing what this patient did, is rush back to work and just not cope. And if you go through intensive chemotherapy, it's like going through major surgery without the scars, or being run over by a bus repeatedly. And so would you not expect to go back to a full-time job within weeks of major surgery or being run over by a bus 4 times? Because that's kind of what you're expecting to do. So although we don't have the scars necessarily, it's actually really hard work getting through this intensive chemotherapy. You've got to be very careful about rushing back to work if you have the choice. So I want to talk a bit about the anxiety about relapse, because anxiety about relapse tends to follow this sort of curve of really high early when we're really terrified about the disease coming back, and it tends to fade as you get more confident that maybe it's not going to, and then you start to be more concerned about the late effects of treatment. So this is a real case. A 40-year-old mother of 3 children, aged 5, 8 and 10, and she also has good risk of acute myeloid leukemia, predicted long-term survival around 78%, so you know, things looking good, in remission. 4 cycles of treatment, pretty tough, but you know, and lost a lot of weight, deconditioning we call it, but you know, did it hard, but we got through. And she was tremendously anxious about relapse at discharge, and the monitoring test became a major event in the household. I mean, her oldest daughter was taking time off school leading up to mum's blood test, and she frequently wanted us to test sooner than advised, because I usually bring once a month, probably enough initially. She wanted me to bring us to have a blood test earlier, and a lot of non-specific symptoms: tiredness, poor appetite, not sleeping, a lot of aches and pains which didn't last very long. And this is called fear of recurrence anxiety 4 after treatment. And it affects up to a quarter of long-term cancer survivors who are cured. And it can be associated with physical symptoms, sort of shortness of breath, what we call hypervigilance to symptoms and events. And this is kind of, you know, I get sore back occasionally, I get a bit of a cough, I feel a bit breathless symptoms, it's a bit odd, I don't sleep very well, I don't feel like breakfast. I just ignore that because I don't have leukemia. Because when you've got leukemia, those things take on, or you've had leukemia, they take on enormous significance. And it's kind of hard to sort of separate, you know, what may or may not be relevant. And it's actually, it's interesting, it is more prevalent, this, and there is literature in that. Younger people are more, it's more prevalent, this fear of relapse. When people are on their own, they've got someone to support them. Women, particularly with children, I think that was the issue for this woman. She's desperately terrified about leaving children and others, not unreasonably. There are some racial differences. In the United States, black people are much less worried about relapse than white people. And I've been to know New Zealand. My guess is Maori people, as a rule, maybe less worried about relapse than European people. I think they generally have a more relaxed attitude to life, in my experience. I don't want to stereotype people, but I think that, you know, it'd be interesting to see what that showed in New Zealand if people did the research. It tends to improve with time, so this fear of relapse is quite high early and tends to get better as people get used to living after leukemia, and obviously more advanced or higher risk disease. Fear of relapse is higher, as it should be. And it tends to be heightened, it gets worse just before the clinic visits or the tests, not unreasonably. And people have this anxiety, they get irritable, can have intrusive thoughts, again, not unreasonably. And I guess that, again, my advice is that you're actually allowed to get everyday symptoms that once wouldn't concern you. You just have to accept that you're not going to be symptom-free for the rest of your life just because we've treated your leukemia and hopefully cured it. You can get colds, flus and fevers, you can get a sore back, you can get diarrhoea. And trying to cope with those with anxiety can be difficult. And the problem for some people is that when they first got leukemia, they were told they had the flu. So, you know, it does mimic the presenting signs sometimes. So it is difficult. But time's the best discriminator again. And so again, I keep saying this, that I'm much more worried about things that persist or worsen over weeks than hours. You know, if someone says I felt awful for a couple of hours, I don't think that means anything. But if you're increasingly awful, your pain's getting increasingly worse or whatever for 2 or 3 weeks, then I start to get more worried about that. And monitoring is a problem. This is the blood tests for leukemia effectively. For lymphoma it's scans, but for blood tests for leukemia. We don't generally monitor with bone marrows. You can pick up leukemia relapse earlier by doing a bone marrow. It doesn't actually help to find it a few weeks earlier than you would have found it on a blood test. And short-term trends often mean nothing. And again, it's a bit like my picture I showed you of sort of overall well-being. The longer you leave it between tests, the more significant any change is actually mean, and the easier they are to interpret. So this is someone's blood count. It could be a hemoglobin or a neutrophil count or a platelet count. What we're scared of is this disappearing, okay, because that would suggest leukemia relapse. And if I do a blood test, this is my baseline, I do a blood test here, it looks really worrying. It looks like the neutrophil counts will disappear quite quickly. If I do a blood test there, that looks sort of as though there's a trend down. But if I hang on to a blood test there, it looks like things are going to get better. Or, you know, things are going to go too high. And the truth is actually that, which is it's not changing, it's just going up and down. And normal people's neutrophil counts and platelet counts fluctuate like this. And the danger of doing a blood test today and saying, gee, my neutrophil count was 1.7 yesterday and it's 1.6 today, that's terrible, it means nothing. Whereas a blood test in a month, my neutrophil count's 1.6 and it's 1.7 yesterday, that means it's stable. Whereas if it's 0.5, that means it's dropping. So there is a compromise between doing tests too infrequently and too frequently, but the truth, time brings out the truth in these things. And the danger of sort of getting overreacting to these, you end up doing more and more tests. And the best thing is just to have a sensible compromise and not doing tests too often. And we do know that every test creates distress to patients and their families often. The time leading up to the test is a scary time. So, you know, we don't want to miss relapse and leave it too late. We also don't want to be focusing on it every few days for the next 5 years of someone's life. So I recommend, I mean, when people just leave hospital, we do it maybe a couple of times a week until we're sure they don't need any more transfusions or they're out of danger. And then I recommend once a month. You know, we're going to see real change in a month that's going to happen. We're going to see stability if it's stable. And then usually 2 months for a second year, 3 months. This is completely arbitrary. But there's no logic. But it gives patients a framework that, yes, I can have a blood test in 3 months because of, you know, 3 years since I was diagnosed, I'm in remission. But always, if someone really has got significant symptoms right, well, if someone says, you know, I've got blood blisters in my mouth, I'll look at a blood test. I've got the, you know, some symptoms, or, you know, I used to be able to walk up a flight of stairs, now I can't. You know, at least get a blood test and check that out if it's real. But we don't routinely do blood tests too frequently, because generally finding out you've got your leukemia come back a few days or a couple of weeks early doesn't generally help. Doesn't change our treatment, probably doesn't change the outlook. The other long-term problem for survivors, fatigue. There's a workshop on fatigue this afternoon that affects up to about a third of cancer survivors. The best treatment for fatigue, as I understand it, is actually exercise. So the last thing you want to do when you're tired is to get off your backside and get out of bed and go for a walk. It doesn't have to be much aerobic exercise. And I mean, there is a condition people have heard of called chronic fatigue syndrome or Tampa flu. Debilitating tiredness for people with no definite abnormality we can find. The best treatment for that is exercise. It's kind of counterintuitive if you don't want to do it, but actually exercise has a considerable role in this, I think. And I'll be able to see, and this is a meta-analysis, this is the Cochrane library. They do these big meta-analyses and this huge, large numbers of patients, and exercise is beneficial for the fatigue for cancer survivors. You don't have to run a marathon or run up mountains or do the stair challenge, just something. Anything's better than nothing. Depression's really common. It's actually no more common than people who haven't had cancer, believe it or not, according to one study I read. It is associated with poorer survival, and again, I'm never quite sure about, you know, people who are depressed maybe have worse disease, and, you know, so if I told you had a 10% long-term survival chance compared to 70%, you're more likely to be depressed, so you're probably going to do worse. So I don't know if it causes the poorer survival, but it's associated with poorer survival. We don't talk about sex much because we feel uncomfortable. I go running with some lads, and when we're running, you think we're international experts on all things sexual, and we've got no idea. But this is something we don't talk about. It's very common, particularly after stem cell transplant, and we do have psychosocial supports in most centres now. There's a national initiative, and all of those people are trained in sexual therapy. And so I certainly refer to people, to those people for expert assistance. It is difficult to discuss, and I think we don't do this, but I don't know, nurses think about this as sort of annual assessment screening tool. Just say, we just want to, you know, one of those quantified questions is, how are you going with these things, including sexual dysfunction. And, you know, it's easy to put that into a sort of survey for us to pick up, and for you to raise it with your doctor. And I know that people do raise it, feel quite uncomfortable, you know. Anyway, so there is help at hand for that if it's a problem, and it is a real problem for some people. Late effects. This is the sort of long-term sort of effects that chemotherapy can have on people. First one is second cancers. So people who've had one cancer, including leukemia, are more likely to get another one. There's no question about that. It's possible there is an underlying predisposition to cancer, something about their immune system that leads one to get away, makes others more of a chance to get away, or maybe something about their genetic makeup makes it more likely they're going to get cancer. Certainly some of the drugs we give, and certainly radiation treatment for other cancers, we don't use it often for leukemia, but they can increase the risk of second cancers. Because conventional drugs and radiation sort of damage DNA, the genes in the cancer cells, and kills them, and normal cells are more resilient, they recover, but their DNA still can be damaged to increase the risk of second cancers. And although that's a concern, generally during treatment you've got to worry about the cancer in front of us, that some 5% chance of second cancer in 5 to 10 years' time, which is the sort of figures we're talking about. What do we do about that? Well, we can minimise risk, and there are lifestyle factors. Clearly, smoking is not a good idea for anybody, particularly someone who's had cancer. Clearly, sun exposure is not a good idea for anybody, but we know the common sense about sun exposure. Alcohol, I think alcohol is going to be our generation's smoking. Like we look at our parents and think, oh, the poor souls, they didn't know smoking was bad for them. I think our kids look at us and say, they didn't know alcohol was bad for us, but I still enjoy a drink. But it probably does increase the risk of cancer a little bit. So alcohol excess certainly is not a good thing, particularly combined with smoking. And exercise may reduce the risk of some cancers. Again, I enjoy exercise, but I didn't always. But it may be a helpful thing to do. And then we've got screening. So we encourage people to be part of the breast screening, cervical screening, and bowel screening is coming to a place near you. Anyone over 60 is going to get a thing in the mail to send some feces in to be tested, and then you might get a colonoscopy if it's positive. So I encourage people to be part of that, and skin checks if they've got skin problems. And prostate screening is a little bit more controversial. Whether the benefits of that is what we discussed, but it's certainly worth having a conversation with the GP about. The second sort of area, apart from cancers, we get cardiovascular disease. So some of the cancer drugs do have a potential effects on the heart. The red drugs, people who've had acute myeloid leukemia treatment will have had the red drugs, anthracyclines. And the total lifetime dose is important, so we do keep the dose under a maximum lifetime dose in terms of causing immediate problems with the heart. But it's possible that there is some damage to the heart caused by these drugs in the long term. And again, what we can do is have the basic common sense cardiovascular checks, good control of the other things that can affect your heart: cholesterol, blood pressure, diabetes, stop smoking, exercise. Sounds like a broken record, really. Survivorship care plans is something that we don't do very well. One of our businesses started doing it a bit, but at time of discharge, so when the times come, for us it's about 5 years, saying, well, we could see you once a year, say hello, it's really nice to see the people who we think have been cured of their leukemia, but ultimately we don't need to. We don't need to remind them of the fact they've had leukemia, and so we do discharge them to their, back to their primary care. And there is some evidence that a care plan is helpful. And in fact, what our nurses are interested in is a care plan when we send people home from hospital. This is what we've done, this is what we might expect. So it's a summary of the disease, what to look for, late effects and how to spot them. And clearly defined responsibilities, who's doing what. So the person isn't left wondering, is this something I should ring the Haematology Department about, or should I go to the GP about? And that's shared with the primary care provider. And there is some evidence of benefit that these things, these care plans, if they're done formally, may be of benefit in solid cancers. There's no research in leukemias, to my knowledge. And it's not done well yet in any centre, I don't think. So that's kind of all I've got to say. I've got a few take-home messages. The future's uncertain for everyone, but particularly uncertain for leukemia survivors. It's really hard for us to describe prognosis. We can only really give you an idea whether you're a favourite or an outsider. Returning to work, to real life, can be really hard after treatment for patients and for their loved ones. We mustn't forget that every person with leukemia has others with them who are deeply affected by this. Recovery is slow and variable. That's 2 steps forward, 1 step backwards, and don't expect every day to be better than the last day, but sort of expect each month overall will be better than the last month. And a cautious return to work is generally advised where possible. I think you're best to avoid testing too frequently. I think there's a tendency to want to know, but it actually just creates anxiety. And if you do too frequently, you don't know what it means because you don't know whether it's had time to change properly. There are going to be everyday setbacks or symptoms, and they don't necessarily mean relapse. Fatigue is really common, and it may be helped by exercise. We can help people who are depressed or have sexual dysfunction. Common sense screening for second cancers and cardiovascular health, and improving health with diet, exercise, smoking cessation, alcohol limitation while enjoying life is important. And I mean, when I talk about these things, you've got to live life to the full. I've got people say, I'd rather die than give up smoking. You know, I advise you to stop smoking, but you've got to enjoy your life because we don't know how long it's going to last. You know, so I think you want to do the things you want to do. A healthy life doesn't have to be a miserable life. It's actually lying in bed feeling sorry for yourself can be quite miserable anyway. And I know it's tough, but you know, actually getting out and exercising does make people feel better often. And you know, I think people should just do the things they want to do. We often say, if there's something you really want to do, that trip of a lifetime, don't muck around. You know, get it done in the first year. If you're still worrying about it in 5 years, you might want to do another one. But what you don't want to do is say, I always wanted to do this, and then the disease comes back 2 or 3 years after treatment, because that can happen. So I'm happy to have this conversation. That's all I've got to say, but it's kind of just really a framework. I focus very much on intensive chemotherapy for acute leukemia, but some of this is relevant to people who are living with diseases like myeloma, lymphoma, or low-grade leukemias, which aren't in remission but aren't necessarily causing much trouble.